Hello. So we're coming towards the end of August, and I really wanted to do one more sort of sour-ish cocktail video. And I particularly wanted to do one on the daiquiri because I adore the daiquiri. Daiquiri is probably what I make when I'm cocktailing more than any other drink. It's pretty much perfection. It's rum and it's cool ice and it's lime and it is simple syrup. You cannot get any more basic and perfect with that. And although you will get complaints from the it has to be a Cuban style sort of de-aged white rum, you can use it with pretty much any rum you want. They all sort of work with that basic formula. In fact, the only thing I think you'd object to with the daiquiri is that it's maybe... so it was invented by an American visitor to Cuba, right? Circa the turn of the century, last century, I mean. And then it just kind of became popular with American visitors to Cuba, right? So, and even the sweetener, the fact that you're using simple syrup, basically liquid sugar, kind of just has this aura of it just maybe a hair bit too easy, a hair bit too bourgeois. So, on rare occasions, you may want to make a cocktail which is not as versatile, but is maybe a bit more fun, a bit more weird. And for that purpose, today I'm going to make a Canchánchara, which was not invented by, white folks visiting Cuba. This was invented by basically independence fighters in the first kind of failed revolutionary war in Cuba against Spain, the so-called 10 Years' War. They made this up in the 1860s and 70s. So, and it's basically sort of aguardiente de caña, whatever citrus they had on hand, a little bit of water, and local honey. And they would mix this up together in their cups called jicaras, and they would serve it hot, like a toddy. That's one of the main differences between the Canchánchara and the daiquiri, is that you can serve it hot, and it makes sense. A hot daiquiri doesn't really make sense to me, but you can do a hot Canchánchara. So this is older than the daiquiri, and maybe a little bit closer to the earth. It's although it was invented, I guess, in the eastern side by the independence fighters, it's now become associated with the town of Trinidad in central Cuba. And if you ever visit Trinidad, I would like to have the pleasure one day. There are apparently tons of bars serving these things, but we're going to make one at home. All right, what you need? Well, you need yourself some citrus first. I'm going to use one of these guys. This is what we call a key lime, also known as a limon criollo. So these little guys they're smaller than normal lime, but they tend to be more sour, a little bit more bitter, and much more aromatic. I like these things a lot. They're just a pain to track down, and they don't last as long. Not even in your fridge as regular limes, so they're a little bit less versatile that way. Here is one I juiced earlier. I am going to use the juice of one full key lime. There it goes. What else? So you need a little bit of water. I'm just going to use, you can use up to 2 ounces of water. And by the way, it has to be lukewarm room temperature water. Do not use cold water for this. And then again, get some honey. Now, traditionally, this is built in the glass. You just or the jicara, whichever right, because you're not going to have a shaker if you're sort of out in the field fighting the Spanish. I am making an adaptation to the recipe. We're going to do a dry shake with the first couple of ingredients first. Because basically when I was building this glass before, I found I had a hard time making my honey dissolve. So I ended up with kind of gross, cold hunks of honey at the bottom of my glass. Now there are many solutions to that. The most popular is to make basically a honey syrup, which you would make the same way as a simple syrup. Sorry, my microphone keeps migrating away from me. Now I'm not going to do that because I don't want you to have to worry about having another bottle of syrup of some kind sitting in your bar waiting for you to use it in some other cocktail, which doesn't exist. So we're just going to build it with raw honey. Here I'm going to use my trusty Trader Joe's organic raw honey. This is the sort of lowest grade honey I would use. You really want to use some, like, the honey is the star of this cocktail. So if you've got some really good local stuff, now is the time to break it out. And you are going to want to use way more honey than you are comfortable with. I'm going to use the better part of a tablespoon. In you go. Okay, good enough. Again, like, you will be looking at the amount of honey and thinking, that's way too much. Once it feels like way too much, you're probably at about the right amount. Now, the reason I am shaking this, so we're going to do a dry shake of these first ingredients, the key lime juice, the water, using a half an ounce of water. You can go up to 2 ounces, and the honey. Do not, shake this with ice because you're going to run into that same problem of just clumps of cold honey lying around. You want to get all of this kind of dissolved up. So I'm going to dry shake the juices out of this. You can, if you want, throw your rum into this. But I find the results just end up too foamy. And that just doesn't feel like in the spirit of the drink. All right. I do not have a jicara, so I'm just going to use a rocks glass with some crushed ice. I'm going to put my honey in there. Oh, that's about what that should look like. See? Nice and no visible clumps. All right. Next up, you need your rum, your aguardiente de caña. Now, even in Cuba, so I should say the term aguardiente has a couple of different meanings when we're talking in the Cuban context. In the more modern terms, we're talking about that portion of the rum making process, which is the spirit that is taken off the column still at a lower alcoholic proof. So it comes off a lower plate, and that becomes the more kind of characterful distillate you're working with in your blending process. But aguardiente can also just refer to any sort of cane-based spirit that does not meet the standards of Cuban rum laws. In the old days, it would have just been whatever hooch came off the local stills. And it's really that last one, which I think is in the character of this drink. You want something that's distilled to a lower proof and pretty close to the cane. The problem is, because the honey is going to be the center of this cocktail, you don't want anything like too weird or too funky. So I'm going to go with, well, the core of this, what I've been using most often is my European. This is a Mexican cane juice rum. But just to show off the kind of some ideas you can play with this. Normally I would just go with this, but to give you some ideas, I'm also going to throw in half an ounce of rum bar, overproof, from Worthy Park in Jamaica. Rum bar is mild as far as the funk levels, the esters go. But this is still about, a half an ounce in a mixed base of 2 ounces is about as much as I would go with this. You really don't want to get this stuff getting into a power struggle with your honey. And then it all goes in the glass. You stir it up. No garnish except maybe a straw. This should really be a bamboo straw, but I'm doing what I can. And then you enjoy. Oh, that's lovely. I could have used more honey in that, actually. Always err on the side of more honey. The daiquiri is definitely, you know, more flexible. The fact that using honey in this does limit the kind of base rums you can use to make this work. But this is so much more fun to make than a daiquiri. And I think just for that reason alone, also you might have some cool honeys lying around. Just for that reason alone, it deserves a place in your rotation. Thanks so much for watching, and cheers.